noticeably better for us, conditions-wise, than last year. Yeah, it was really nice. It felt good.
Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, August 12th, 2019 meeting of the Cape Elizabeth Town Council. Could we please have the roll call?
Chairman Garvin?
Here.
Councillor Devereaux? Here. Councillor Gabrielson?
Here.
Councillor Caitlin Jordan? Councillor Penelope Jordan? Here. Councillor Randall?
Here.
And Councillor Straw?
Here.
Thank you very much. Councillor Caitlin Jordan reached out to me today. She's out of town for the day and indicated she probably wouldn't be back in time for this, so just so you know. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do any councillors have any reports or correspondence they wish to communicate? Councillor Jordan.
I have a couple of things, and one of them is a follow-up to our last council meeting where I think town manager was going to get some information about the short-term rental complaints that may have been out there, and so I just wanted to follow up on that piece. Did you touch base with Ben McDougall about that?
Councillor Jordan, I did. I spoke with Ben, and during this past season, there's been 14 different complaints that have been registered. Breaking that down a little bit, 4 have been placed by one person, 3 by another, 2 by one other person, and so that gives us 9, and then 5 individuals had lodged complaints and others. A couple of them were in 2 of the neighborhoods that were represented that evening. That's been the primary focus where we received complaints from, and but Ben has been responding to them as well as continuing his diligence as far as researching, trying to find new short-term rentals and getting them in compliance with the current ordinance, as well as trying to make sure that those who do have it stay in compliance with that. But he has been working on it. I think he'll be coming up in September with a presentation just to kind of reflect on the whole season for the council, as well as, or we may wait until it's appropriate when the council starts taking up the short-term rental discussion during the comp plan deliberations as well. There may be better timing.
Yeah, because I know there's a lot of conversation going on out there in different neighborhoods about the short-term rentals, so it's going to keep popping up on the radar.
And we have, and the good thing from that last council meeting was that folks have taken the advice placed to them by council to pursue the channels that exist out there to follow up with complaints. We did have a couple of police complaints specific to noise, and then those were in as recently as this morning at Department Heads. Chief Fenton delivered a couple of those to Ben to let him know about them, and they were actually following up from where neighbors had identified complaints to Ben over the weekend. So we are following up on those as diligently as possible, and but we will have more details to come.
Okay, cool.
Thanks for asking.
The second thing had to do with the, I reached out to Jim Rowe, and because I didn't know what was happening with Bicentennial and if that's something we want to put on one of our workshops to talk about what Cape Elizabeth might want to do. I think the Historic Society might want to play a role in that. So, and I think we have a workshop coming up the first part of September. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Any other councillors have any reports or correspondence?
I just wanted to mention, as a follow-up to the discussion we had, I believe, at our last meeting around the situation with folks who are being temporarily housed at the Expo, that the Metro Region Coalition has another short-term emergency meeting, non-scheduled meeting tomorrow. Matt and I both attend those meetings. I'm unable to go tomorrow, but they are approaching the end of their deadline when people are going to have to be out of the Expo. So Matt, I believe, is going to represent us at that meeting tomorrow, but that's coming up.
Thank you. Any other reports or correspondence? I'll make mention of the fact that I think we all received an email from one resident. I received another email individually and had another person contact me directly For the first time since I've been on the council, we just had the Beach to Beacon race last week, and I know Matt will probably address that in a moment in his remarks in his manager's report. Did have varying concerns that were raised by a couple of residents about things related to traffic and parking where there shouldn't be parking and things like that. So while we don't have any specific role over the logistics and operation of the race or anything like that, I hope that we can communicate to the folks that do on behalf of the residents that reached out. So make sure that we do that as well. So. Any other? Go ahead if you want to respond.
Sure.
To that. Yep.
Yeah, if I may, thank you. I'm on as the town's representative on the board, and that was my plan, was to bring, generally we do a, for lack of a better term, a debrief in September, and I took note of both the correspondence that we have received, and we'll be passing those comments along and make sure that they get received and in helpful determination to improve the quality and the respondents of the race. So it's definitely something I wanted to bring forward.
Great.
And will.
If there are no other reports, we'll move on to finance report. And Councilor Straw.
So you should all have the appropriation control, the expense distribution, the revenue control, the revenue distribution, as well as the financial dashboard. I just have a couple additional comments about each of those, and then I'd be curious if anyone has any questions about anything. Starting with the appropriation control report, that's going to be subject to some minor revision, just specifically the last two non-percentage columns in the expenditures need to be updated. There was a software bug where the last year and the year before are both being printed in a number of instances, so that will just be updated. Beyond that, there's some items in the revenue in the, let's start with the expense distribution report. I just wanted to highlight that one reason the expenses are where they are is we've begun to incorporate in a number of the expenses relating to redoing Scott Dyer Road. So you're going to see a bunch of larger items showing up from that. And then the revenue distribution report may be subject to some revisions, which I'll cover in a second with respect to the dashboard. So on the dashboard, a couple things I wanted to flag. You'll recall that we added an SRO for the schools, a resource officer at the schools, who then in the summertime was also going to help with just regular policing in town. We can see in the dashboard that our police overtime number is actually down notably from prior year, and it's actually lower than it has been for the last couple of years. So this is the first time where we actually have an opportunity to see what effect this is having. The additional headcount is having on the overtime number now that we've had the changeover with the police chief and we brought on new officers. So it's nice to see that police overtime is dropping. So I wanted to highlight that. That will save us more in the long run, hopefully. The other item I wanted to flag was the Portland gift shop numbers. Although it looks like it's down 30,000 from last year, and there had been some concern that, if we raise bus fees or we charge for parking, we may see a drop-off in the gift shop. That number's subject to change. We're looking into that. So take that number with a grain of salt, and it may be revised upwards. And then we'll have better insight into what's going on with the gift shop sales. And the last one was just we have the pay and display numbers, but as the town manager may cover, this is gross, not net, so that number will be further revised. And the last point about the gift shop sales is it was also only 8 weekend days, which is about the lowest you can have for weekend days in a month for July versus I think it was 9 or 10 the prior year, maybe 9. So that will also account for the discrepancy from one year to the next on the month. Any questions on any of that?
I just wanted to offer my thanks. I know from my emails today, you were diligently scrutinizing a lot of the detail in all of the financial reports, and I just want to express my appreciation for the amount of time that you were clearly putting in on that today, so thanks very much. Any questions for Chris on anything you went over? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Is there anybody here this evening wishing to speak to something that's not on our agenda? Please come forward and give us your name and address or affiliation. And if you could limit your comments to about 3 minutes, please.
My name is Bill Goodycombs. I live at
Could you just raise the microphone just a little bit? Sorry.
I'm sorry?
Could you just raise up the microphone just a little bit? Perfect, thank you.
My name is Bill Goodycombs. I'm at 55 Cross Hill Road. I sent a letter to the council about 2 weeks ago on the town website, and at the end of the letter, I asked for a reply. I've not received a reply from anybody, so I thought I better show up in person. I'd like to read my email to you. This is going to sound like it's about the dogs at the fort, but it's not. And I'm dredging up some old business here. I just don't know where we stand, and I have a concern. I know that the intersection of Scott Dyer Shore Road and Ocean House Road have been discussed before, but I don't know where the discussion stands, and I have a problem. My wife and I take our dog from our home in Cross Hill down to Fort Williams on a daily basis, traveling east on Scott Dyer, crossing Ocean House Road, and continuing on Shore Road. Far too often, most recently about once a week, and even though I'm very careful with my signaling, a driver coming in the opposite direction on Shore Road and turning left onto Ocean House Road is presumably watching traffic from too many directions at once and has come within just a few feet of running into the side of my car, most recently this morning. As I say, I'm careful to make sure that as soon as I enter Ocean House, I signal that I'm turning left onto Shore Road. But the other driver is just watching too many directions at once to notice. Accidents of this sort, if they haven't happened so far, are sure to. I think the conversation has to start up again about the possibility of lights at this intersection, and I'd like to know what I can do to get this going. As I say, I know it's old business, but I don't know where we stand with this issue.
So I just want to first thank you for your comments. And as you were speaking and I was listening to you, I was going back through my emails, and I don't have any email from you. So I don't know if something just it didn't submit correctly or something like that. I know that if you had asked for a reply, one of us certainly would have offered it to you. So I apologize for whatever reason we didn't receive the email, but thank you for bringing your comments forward to us this evening and coming to the meeting. Okay. So apologies for that. Okay. And specific to your question around the intersection, I know that in our recent review and approval of the comp plan, that was an item that was included in the comp plan, and in our September meeting is when we'll begin laying out action plans and work plans around that. So it still remains, as it has for several years now, as you alluded to, a point of interest and concern to certain residents in town. So it's something that we'll be continuing to look at go forward.
So it's still on the table?
Yep.
Okay. I was thinking it was something that was talked about once before and it was sort of dropped, so I didn't know.
I would just say that, like many issues, it sort of bubbles up and, kind of goes quiet from time to time.
Literally, you have cars come. It looks to me, and maybe it looks too close, but it looks to me like within 2 or 3 feet of hitting my truck.
I can't remember the specific language in the comp plan, but I think it's something that's fairly broadly worded to say, look at ways to improve the safety of vehicular and pedestrian traffic at that intersection and things like that. So whether that's a light or other traffic calming measures to, increase vehicular and pedestrian safety there, it's something that's included in the plan and something we'll be looking at. Okay. And again, apologies for the email snafu.
All right.
But thanks for coming.
All right, thank you.
Any other folks that want to comment on anything?
Chairman Garvin?
Yes.
So just to put a pin on it, so to speak, looks like it's page 56 of the comp plan. If you want to go look, is one spot where it's mentioned.
Thank you, Chris.
Hi, my name is Jim Sparks, 14 Woodcrest Road.
Nasser Sheikh, 41 Ocean House Road.
We're part of a group called the Cape Diversity Coalition, and we were here in 2017 in front of some of you, and we were speaking on behalf of a resolution that would really make a sort of declaration about tolerance in Cape Elizabeth and anti-racism, anti-xenophobia. You passed it. It was not an easy set of discussions, but you did pass it. And those words could have gone into the ether, as they sometimes do, but last month you took a vote, which I thought really put flesh and bone on those words and those commitments, and so we wanted to come and thank you for your vote last month. And We tried to gather those we could. Many are gone this summer, but we have 9 people who've agreed to co-sign this letter. And so I'm just going to read it, and then Nasser's going to say a few more words. We want to express our appreciation for your unanimous July 8th decision to spend $10,000 in support of efforts to assist recent asylum seekers. The gesture represents a significant act of hospitality. The Cape Diversity Coalition formed with the hope that Cape Elizabeth will become a welcoming place for those seeking refuge. We are heartened by your action. In addition, we deeply appreciate the tone of the Council's discussion. Allocating the money is a significant step, but we also noted the multiple ways the Council focused on a comprehensive response. Rather than retreating into isolation, you stepped forward to engage directly with Portland, South Portland, and other communities that are on the forefront of providing services and housing. We deeply appreciate the sense that Cape Elizabeth is reaching out and staying engaged. With gratitude, Ann Carney, Priscilla Dryman, Denny Morton, Paul Seidman, Nasser Sher, Jim Sparks, Lindsay Tucker, Jamie Wagner, Shukriya we are.
Thank you. So we did a little bit of work, Jim and I and a couple others, to raise some backpacks, beds, anything we could in Cape Elizabeth by our network. So I wasn't here when you guys passed the vote, and I'd just like to suggest, because I wasn't here, maybe you guys already discussed this. In the future, it would be nice to see if we can get the citizens involved, if they want to match or they want to donate something in addition to what you guys offer. I'm sure many in the town have probably donated already, but it's nice to know that it might have been donated on behalf of a Cape residents or Cape residents as well. So it'd be nice to somehow in the future to get that number as well. But we appreciate your support, and probably don't get this many thank yous from the people, but it's greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak to something not on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. We'll go to the Town Manager's Monthly Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we close in on the end of summer, there are many items to report on. Scott Dyer Road construction will be wrapping up work of Phase 2 this week. Could have maybe even wrapped up this afternoon. So very excited about that, especially folks who use that on a consistent basis. With the nice safety improvements, drainage improvements, and an improved travel surface, it should be a good pleasure. And next year we shall see Phase 3 come through and tie the entirety of Scott Dyer Road together. The only caution I would bring forward is look out for the increased speed due to the nice surface. That is a concern that we do have because the old one was subtle traffic control. Tax Assessor Clinton Sweat has committed taxes, and the 2019-2020 tax bills are coming this week. The positive news to report is the new mill rate will be $19.68, and that is 8 cents less than what we had anticipated at the end of the budget season. So that's a nice surprise. Tax due dates will be October 1st, 2019 and April 1st, 2020 with an interest rate for late payments of 9%, and that is set by the legislature, not locally. Town offices will be closed this week on Thursday, August 15th. For the full day, as staff will be performing annual training. The focus will be on customer service and mandatory sexual harassment training. Later in the morning, the annual Employee Appreciation Day and Service Awards Luncheon will take place at the Fort. Thomas Memorial Library will also be closed on August 31st for the day, as a deep cleaning of the facility will take place with all of the carpets being cleaned and will require some time to dry. That seemed to be probably the slowest day of the year, as it's the Saturday before Labor Day, but we wanted folks to know that before they showed up and were surprised. I'll be meeting this week with Joe Shalat and representatives from the Cape Elizabeth Historical Preservation Society to review proposed updates and renovations for the Spurwing School building, working to advance this project. And staff is finalizing its preparations for the annual audit, which will begin August 26th, with the auditors planning to be here for the week. And on July 22nd, the Paper Streets case was argued in the business court, with the 2 counts under consideration. The town prevailed in the first count due to the court finding that the claim of adverse possession was unsupported. In the second count, the court found the argument was unripe, as the town has only extended its incipient rights of dedication. What would be a council meeting without the discussion of paper streets? So, Friday, August 9th, initial filings for appealing this decision to the law court were filed. That was as of this morning when I spoke with the town's attorney. So, we will plan on moving forward. Readers may notice a new function of the financial dashboard, information on the revenues from pay and display parking. This month it shows the gross revenues, while next month it will provide the net proceeds after expenses. One will note the gross revenues for the month of July were $122,670. Finally, I've been participating in a local work group of GPCOG communities investigating the conversion to LED streetlights. We recently interviewed 4 providers of such lighting, and it makes excellent business sense to continue investigating the cost savings and payback options. I'll have more to report as these discussions continue, but it's definitely an opportunity that we will have, and we'll probably be coming forward within the next, the fiscal 2021 budget. And that is what I have to report this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Matt? I will add, because I didn't know if you'd talked about it, but I didn't want to steal your thunder if you would. I do want to thank all the many organizers and volunteers, and particularly residents of the town, for their support of the Beach Beacon race last week. I often always say that Cape Elizabeth never looks better than it does on the first Saturday in August, and that was truly the case this year. The staff that were out working in the park and around town to really put the best face forward for Cape Elizabeth deserve our thanks and to be commended. And then all the people that come out, and in spite of what we were talking about before about some minor inconveniences around parking and things like that, the town really does come out in full force to support the race. And so I want to thank everybody that was either a participant or a supporter or a volunteer or organizer or anything like that. It's a great day in Cape Elizabeth in every August. So thank you very much. If there's nothing else further, we'll move on the agenda. Review of the minutes from our July 8th executive session regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Councilor Randall, is there a second? Councilor Jordan, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Next up is item number 124-2019. The well at Jordan Farm liquor license renewal. Councilor Jordan?
I need to recuse myself from this.
Thank you. With Councilor Jordan's recusal, I'll also add, just as a statement of public disclosure, that one of my sons is a seasonal employee at Jordan Farm this summer, so if anybody has any concerns about that? No? Okay. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, having reported no concerns from police, fire, or code enforcement, I'm looking for a motion to approve the renewal of the restaurant, malt, Venice, and spirituous liquor license for The Well, doing business as The Well at Jordan's Farm, as presented. Moved by Councilor Devereaux. Is there a second? Councilor Straw, any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Next up is a public hearing on proposed amendments to Chapter 7 of the Dogs Ordinance. Before I welcome members of the public to come up and speak for the public hearing, I think it might be good to just have an overview of what it is we're talking about here, talk about the sort of planned schedule of having the public hearing here this evening, and then the council voting on this next month after having digested the input that we get from the public. So would either representative of the ordinance committee like to introduce this at all?
I think where we came down last month, and Valerie helped me here, is that we, the concept of property management and the different levels, whether it be 1, 2, or 3, and that there was one area that the town is under the town council's purview, which is athletic fields that are municipal. And I think what we discussed was the proposal that become a number 1, which would be no dogs allowed on athletic fields. And I think that's what we're talking about here tonight. Is that?
Right. So it's I guess that the topic is up for discussion, whether it should be no dogs seasonal, because we did have the one field in Fort Williams Park that, as a council, we had looked at previously and made it one way during certain times of year and other ways during other times of years. So in the committee, we had discussed at length the possibility of changing that, and a number of, there were some very concerned citizens, a number of citizens who were very vocal about their concerns in both directions, the individuals who wanted no dogs and those who thought that it was important. And we felt as a committee that it would be a better discussion had among the full council. So that was sort of where we left things.
Right.
Okay, so that being said, I'll open up the public hearing for anybody wishing to come forward to speak on this. If you could come to the podium and give us your name, address, or affiliation, and please limit your comments to about 3 minutes.
Sure, thank you very much. My name is Roger Cowett. I live at, 357 Fowler Road here in the Cape. I've been here since '92, and we've had 5 canines in our family, and we do consider them family. They're our children. We love them as though they're our children. We try to get them exercise, feed them well, give them veterinary care. And when restrictions come in about dogs, it's about our family. It's about me. It's about my partner. Because when we moved here, it was so much different. And so many things have changed. You can't go to the beaches, some beaches at all with your dogs. You can go to some others during different times of the year, different times of the day. It really gets ridiculous after a while. Same thing with Robinson Woods. And now we thought we were in a quieter part of town where we could go to Gullcrest and around there, and that's restricted some now. And now it's going to be restricted even more. And I'm beginning to not feel welcome here. I thank you for the work you do. But I wish that people considering families as wholes would think when they're talking about people's dogs. I know people misbehave with their dogs. They don't take care of them. They don't pick up after them. I pick up after other dogs when I see it sometimes because I care of where I live. If people don't care, it's their responsibility. We can point it out to them, but by making these restrictions more and more, you do it to all of us, those that take care of our dogs, those that take care of what we do in this town and don't cause problems and try to be good citizens. And the other thing is, I think you should have done this later in the year in September when so many people are on vacation now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Jamie, can I just add one thing? I realized in queuing this up, we really focused on this idea of the athletic fields, but the public hearing is also about the rest of the ordinance for the information of everybody here and watching or listening. So the rest of the ordinance, just to sort of intro that, does in fact open up the off-leash but under voice and sight control spaces. So a lot of the ordinance as it currently is written is a little bit vague about groomed versus ungroomed properties, and this ordinance, which the Conservation Committee worked very hard on, looks at all these individual spaces, and most of them would be changed to a Category 3, which is dogs on leash or under voice control. So a dog is permitted to be off leash if under voice control. And then there's Category 2, which is on leash only, and Category 1, which is no dogs. So it's a whole variety of spaces that we're talking about, and it's in the packet tonight. But I think the one that we received the most feedback on in the ordinance committee was the athletic field question.
Thank you for that additional detail. Other speakers for the public hearing?
Good evening. My name is Roger Rio. I live at 5 Bridle Pathway, which is across from Fort Williams. Just to be clear, my wife and I have a dog. We walk her to the park most days of the week, so we are dog friendly. I have 3 points that I would like to make. One is athletic fields should be off limits, both for the health of the fields and as well as the health of the children who are on them. Dog feces and dog urine are not healthy for either of those. They hurt the grass, and in the springtime and wintertime, dogs running around dig up the field and cause some damage. That is by talking, I got that information personally, but also by talking with the people who are maintaining the fields. It's a little unclear on the categories, the property management categories, about where Fort Williams multi-purpose field is. It is an athletic field primarily, first and foremost. It was funded by donations from the community, and it is an athletic field. So I would encourage that. And speaking as a member of the Little League Board, which I've done before, so I won't go into all the detail, but in the springtime, right after winter, that's when it gets its use from young children playing t-ball, along with their family members, 2-year-olds running around, falling down on the field, and then where does their hands go? To their mouths. It is a very unhealthy situation to have dogs and children playing on the same fields. My second point is one of the categories has to do with on-leash or voice control. I've made this point before. I would encourage you. Voice control is practically, for all practical purposes, non-existent unless this is a service dog. I challenge anybody to find 20 dogs on a field and call your dog. See a squirrel or I've got food in my pocket, your dog will not come. It just doesn't happen. Thirdly, I would encourage you to have a category which is off-leash, because the categories as they are designated, that does not include the area that is now off-leash at Fort Williams. Why not have an off-leash area at Fort Williams and potentially in the future other areas within town if people want to work towards and make that happen? It happens in other communities. I've sent you emails and letters to that fact that other towns have specific fenced off-leash areas for their animals. And I think we should consider that in the future. So I would encourage you to include those items. Thank you.
Thank you. There are others looking to speak on this? Go ahead.
Bill Goody-Kuntz, 55 Cross Hill Road. Just really briefly in response, I have a hard time understanding the sentence, dogs and children shouldn't play on the same field. I grew up with dogs, with my friends, and lots and lots and lots of dogs, all of us playing on the same field. Somehow, I'm still standing here, totally alive. I'm fine. Children and dogs should play together on the same field. Every sport doesn't have to be organized. We used to not have that. Today we're doing that. I'm not saying that dogs and children shouldn't be on the same field while the children are playing sports, but to say that children and dogs shouldn't be playing together, I don't get it. You said children and dogs shouldn't play together on the same field.
Sir, if you could direct your comments to the council and not to
I'm responding to what he said.
I understand responding to, but not directing the comments directly to that person.
I don't understand the statement.
Thank you.
And some dogs are under voice control. I've seen it. My dog is. I've seen others under very good voice control. That statement also wasn't true.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on this?
Can I just clarify?
Go ahead.
I appreciate what the gentleman said, but let me clarify. An athletic field, I'm not talking about if you choose to bring your child to a field, your children, and they play with a dog, that's fine, that's healthy. The players don't have a choice. They are on a field, and they may be allergic, they might be sensitive to what dogs leave on a field, and that's what I was speaking to, not that dogs and children don't belong together. We let our dog play with kids all the time, but it's their choice, not mine. They ask me, can we touch your dog, can we peg your dog, and that's appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments as part of our public hearing?
My name is Tom Myers. I'm at 4 Seaview, and I've been before you before on this subject. I appreciate Councilor Randall's description of what occurred both with the Conservation Committee as well as the Ordinance Committee with the way the ordinance has been developed. I think there's great wisdom in the way that has been constructed or with the different types of categories. I think the discussion that is happening this evening is exactly what we had, or I should say exactly what you had hoped would occur, both with the provocative nature of Councilor Caitlin Jordan's comments to bring this subject to the way that you did. I thought that was a good idea to make sure you get comments that reflect or draw people to it. Again, I offer that the wisdom you have tonight, or I guess you're not going to vote on it until September. I don't know if you received any other comments offline or via emails about this from any other groups or anything. It would be helpful to know that if you did receive anything in addition to the comments and the testimony that's tonight. So a lot of that background chatter is also useful to know to what depth I would take my remarks in September. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. I'll address that point. I'd say we've probably gotten collective, as directed to the entire council, I'd say maybe 6 to 8 emails that have been addressed to the entire council. I can't speak to whether or not individual councilors have been contacted or not. I'd say, much like the discussion here this evening, the opinions that have been shared have been roughly split between the opinions that have been reflected here tonight. So,
well, I know if you want to participate and speak up, you should be here. So I don't know to what extent those comments reflect on what decisions you will actually make. I think to show up and speak up is really an important piece of this, to know what kind of things are being discussed and what kind of information you're receiving to make decisions on that subject. I understand that you've received in both ways, but
yeah.
It's sort of hard to, as we've heard earlier, there's some counterbalancing that occurs in public testimony rather than just behind the scenes. So I don't know if those are emails that are available to be shared or not.
Anything that is sent to the council is publicly available. All you have to do is request it.
Okay.
I'm trying to summarize here for the purpose of the meeting, but people with the same kind of passion that we're hearing here tonight, either in favor or against.
Great. Thank you. That's great. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I would just say that whether people are able to be here in person to offer their support or not for a particular view, the council takes with equal weight whether somebody emails us, calls us, or shows up to a public
great.
hearing. So
that's good to know, Mr. Chair. I'll be glad. I'll be tickled to see the kinds of comments you get. Thank you.
No problem. Any other comments on this? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. So as was mentioned at the outset, the plan is to take the information that people have shared with us both tonight in advance of this meeting, and I suspect in the weeks that will lead up to our September 9th meeting, and we will plan to vote on these ordinance changes at the September 9th meeting. There will be additional opportunity, as there is for any agenda item, for public comment at the September 9th meeting. So if folks didn't have a chance to either be here tonight or haven't had a chance to email us or otherwise reach out to us, there will be that opportunity as well. Just a reminder, with a regular agenda item as opposed to a public hearing, there is a prescribed time limit for the public comment period unless the council votes to extend that time period. So having had a public hearing, I think the council generally is of the opinion to keep as close to the pre-assigned public comment time as possible. So that all being said, no further action on that agenda item tonight. We'll move on the agenda to number 126-2019, a request to amend the sewer service area. I'm sorry, did you? Yep, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. You may want to have a motion to send it to move this to the September 9th.
Oh, to table. Yeah. So, as a matter of housekeeping, is there a motion to table item number 125-2019 to the September 9th meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Jordan, seconded by Councilor Straw. Yes?
Just so you guys don't feel blindsided, I was just going to quickly iterate the things that I'm going to end up proposing. Just as ministerial things for the definitions, we have a number of definitions that are duplicative of state law. So instead of us redefining large definitions for each of those, which would be dog, at-large, dangerous dog, nuisance dog, I'm going to propose just switching it to say it shall have the same meaning as 7 MRS 3907 or whatever it is. So that will just shorten the overall ordinance. There are some other ones that are duplicative of state law itself, so, or at least to me appear duplicative, unless someone can point out, oh, they're different some way. I just end up striking those ones. So there'll be a couple of those that I'm going to propose. And then it was mentioned by Mr. Rio, I think, the way that we've put together the list for the property management category definitions, we have athletic fields at the bottom marked as a 1, but we still have Fort Williams multi-purpose field listed as a 2 or 3, so we should clarify and get rid of that discrepancy. And then for the various categories, northeast area appears in multiple areas, so those need to be consolidated together. And we have Fort Williams under the Stonegate area. I'd pull that out separately. And those are the main kind of ministerial things that I'll want to cover.
Okay, Councilor Gabrielson.
I'd just also like to request, I appreciate the discussion that this has generated by having this discussion about dogs on athletic fields. If we could structure the vote at the September meeting so that we have a separate vote on the ordinance and the table of listed uses, which is designed to be updated periodically anyway, I think that might facilitate a better discussion. In my reading of the comments that we've received, I haven't seen any specific opposition to the basic structure of the ordinance, and so I'd like to have that discussion and vote separately from a specific vote about what, which category should be assigned to which location.
Yeah, I think that's consistent with, for example, and Mr. Myers is here representing the neighborhood near Cliff House Beach, where we just, we made some revisions to ordinance, but also then separately approved a property management plan. So, I mean, I think that's consistent with what we do in other cases as well. But I agree with the suggestion, and I think that makes good sense to operate that way. So, Councilor Devereaux?
And I just wanted to point out that our section numbering is off. We have 71-8 without a 71-7. Unless that was purposeful, I thought that we could take that up also next week, because we jumped from, we have 2 718s. So if you look at the very first one, management of dogs, it really should be 717, but the 7's crossed out and 8 is underlined.
Yeah.
And then you have 718 is removal of dog waste.
Yep.
So I just want to point that out. And then that leaves some, on page 6, we mention section 718 3 times in some subsections. That should really be 717.
Good catch.
So I don't know if we want to clean that up before we come to the next meeting, so that it's correct when we vote on it.
Mr. Chairman, if I could request, I know Councilor Strong and Councilor Devereaux both have some edits. If you'd be so kind as to send those forward, and we'll endeavor to get those installed on the staffing level and have that ready to go for the September public hearing, or September meeting. Sorry.
Okay.
I would just underscore for anybody in the public that short of Councilor Straw's recommendations for collapsing and consolidating under state statute, the other things that we're talking about here are effectively administrative changes and not material to the substance of the ordinance. So in case people are worried about other changes being made in advance of the actual vote at the September 9th meeting. So other discussion? Other comments? So if you all or anybody else as Matt just said, forward any of those comments, Matt, along with staff can work on updating the document for us for the 9th.
I
Go ahead.
do have one more comment.
Go ahead.
And it's about leash. This just says handheld device.
What page are you on?
I'm on the second page,
Okay.
where it defines leash.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that somebody connected a piece of yarn to the dog's collar and walked around Fort Williams claiming that was a leash. And I'm sure it was a statement. However, under our, it says used to restrain a dog. However, we might want to make it a little bit clearer what leash means rather than just handheld device, so that people do realize it's a cord, something that can actually restrain a dog's weight. Just a thought, so that we don't have people connecting yarn to their dog and calling it a leash.
Okay. I would suggest that either we can go through the exercise of doing all this now and voting to make changes and things like that, or we can also do that. So I would sort of put a punch list together of those kinds of things that you think need to be addressed, and we can offer up amendments to what's here at the meeting on the 9th, and the council can either vote those up or down.
I think that's a great idea. And
I would ask, just since you've brought it up, I'm curious whether there was any discussion on the part of the ordinance committee or perhaps conservation committee about the actual definition of leash, but if there wasn't a lot of substantive conversation about that, that's fine too, but
We didn't have extensive discussion on leash. We did review the definition of it, and that was here.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed to be consistent with the dictionary definition of leash, which is a strap or cord for restraining and guiding a dog.
I mean, I can infer from the language here that you were leaning on the restrain a dog clause of that sentence.
Exactly.
More than the description of the material or anything like that. So.
Right.
Is there any other discussion with a reminder that the motion on the motion before us is to table this to the next meeting? So, any other comments or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of tabling this to the September 9th meeting? Great, that's unanimous. How are you, Caitlin? All right, next item is number 126-2019, a request to amend the sewer service area at 38 Broad Cove Road. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, we have a request pursuant to a referral that we made to the planning board back at our previous meeting, where the planning board has reviewed and is planning to hold a public hearing on the 20th on this item. And so as an administrative exercise to speed this along, we're looking to preemptively schedule a public hearing for September 9th, assuming that the planning board comes to us with a recommendation to do just that. So is there a motion to set to public hearing this item on September 9th?
So moved.
Councillor Straw, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Councillor Devereaux, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Next is item number 127-2019, acceptance of the Shore and Harbor Planning Grant Award. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this? Seeing none. Back in the spring, we voted on a recommendation to pursue and authorize the staff to pursue a grant that would help support the Kettle Cove Access Project. It has come back that we have been recommended to receive a grant award of $13,750, which is great news. So I'm looking for a motion to accept that grant and authorize the manager to sign the service contract that has been presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilor Randall, is there a second? Councilor Penelope Jordan, is there any discussion? Councilor Devereaux?
Since it's a 25, requires a minimum of 25% match, our match is about $2,000, was that correct, from the numbers I looked at, Matt?
I think roughly, and we should be, or we can also be in kind as well. So we have the money set aside to match our end of it, but we also have staff time that we will also be devoting to this. So
Okay, that's great.
yeah, very exciting to move this forward.
Yeah.
Any other comments or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
if I may for a moment. I just want to thank Town Planner Maureen O'Meara for her work on moving this forward, and it's very exciting for the town to receive this. It's kind of a two-parter. Probably after we get through this work next spring, we'll be looking to apply for what they call a Coastal Harbor Access Grant. So it's kind of like this was the first domino to fall, and then the second domino would be to help us try to find some grant funding to help us with an access that should come from the planning of this. So thank you for your approval of this evening, and we'll get moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and I share that gratitude, and Maureen does a great job pursuing those opportunities, of which we'll see some coming up in the next agenda item on the carry forward balance too. So next up is item number 128-2019, proposed carry forward balances. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak on this? Seeing none. Do we want to take these, can we take these in block, or do we have to do them individually?
I believe you can approve the whole shooting match.
Okay, let's do that. So we have total balances for the general fund, for capital projects and equipment, for grants and gifts, as well as ambulance rescue fund, sewer fund, Riverside Cemetery, Fort Williams Park capital improvement, continued authorization and appropriation for MDOT sidewalk project, capital improvements, additional capital improvements projects, and as mentioned, other grant appropriations so that they do not lapse. John, did you want to add anything to this?
Yes, thank you. John Quadraro, Finance Director. In going over, I found an arithmetic error. Also, I found additional funds that are available to be carried over for the roadway and drainage repair. I've prepared a spreadsheet.
Super.
And therefore, I would ask that subsection B be amended to change the $2,440,015 to $2,701,179, please.
Thank you. Seeing no opposition, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update. So we'll make sure that both the minutes and the materials reflect that. So with that all being said, is there a motion to authorize these carry forward balances into the fiscal 2020 budget?
So moved.
Councillor Penny Jordan, is there a second? Councillor Devereaux, any discussion? Manager Sturgis.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. If I may, I wanted to thank John Quadraro for his work on this. He's been tireless. I know department heads worked extremely hard to identify the areas that they want to bring forward, but John's done a great job pulling this and organizing it, and he's been a superior asset helping us get to this point. So I wanted to take a point to thank him for that.
Great. Thank you very much, John. Go ahead.
So he's going to be an asset we're going to carry forward?
Yes, exactly. Tomorrow he'll be carrying on.
That was good. That was good.
Any other comments, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Next up, go ahead.
I just wanted to note, as I realized I was negligent on it, on item 127, 2019, the Shore and Harbor Planning Grant Award. Looking at the map, I'm not sure if it is directly across from their property, but some friends of ours bought a property right near where the boat launch is, so I just wanted to disclose that if anyone has any concern.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no concerns, we'll move on to item number 129-2019, the Spirit of America Award recommendation. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this? Seeing none. You'll remember back in April, Representative Bruce Flaherty from the Maine, representing the Maine Spirit of America group, came to us detailing the program and encouraging us to make nomination for the award, which recognizes outstanding volunteerism and embodiment of the American spirit. The manager and I have discussed, and I know the manager discussed with school superintendent as well and other staff, his recommendation that the Pond Cove Elementary School Playground Committee, which has been working, as you all well know, on the fundraising and work for the Pond Cove Playground replacement, be the nominee that we put forward to the Spirit of America group. So I'm looking for a nomination for just that.
I think I should disclose real quick first that I have done some work with the committee, that I have been in talks with them to help with some of the playground. So I don't know if that's a conflict or if anyone feels that I should not vote on this.
I recall that when we've previously voted on this, you had recused yourself, and so I think to be consistent with that should be the case here. Thank you. So with that out of the way, is there a motion to put forward this group as our nominee?
So moved.
Councilor Caitlin Jordan, is there a second? Councilor Gabrielson, any discussion?
I'm just curious what the next process is after we nominate them. Is this an award that is granted by the Spirit of America Committee in Augusta? How will they? What's the next step?
Go ahead.
Yep. Thank you. What they end up doing is they have a celebration at the county level, and it'll probably be in October, where they'll present with them their award. So they will, what the town, Mr. Flaherty and the Spirit of America Foundation's desire is that each town names a recipient, either a group or a different volunteer, and then once we bring that name forward, tomorrow morning what I'll do is I'll enter into their awards bracket. Who's coming from the town of Cape Elizabeth, and then in October they have an event at the county commissioners meeting where they'll present them the award.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the recommendation? That's unanimous. Thank you. And our last item is number 130-2019, voting on the ballot for Maine Municipal Association officers. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak on this? Seeing none. We have before us the slate. It's our responsibility to vote on this ballot. Jeremy, you're the MMA? No. Who? Chris is the MMA rep.
Not anymore.
Valerie. Jeez. Can't keep up. Anything you'd like to add or weigh in on with this? Or?
No.
Okay. So we have before us the ballot. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Moved by Councilor Randall, seconded by Councilor Gabrielson to approve the voting ballot as proposed here. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous. I see no other citizens remaining to speak on anything that we did not cover tonight, so lacking that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilor Jordan. And is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Randall. Any discussion? It's unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you.